Hi guys, welcome back. Chelsea played a 2-2 draw against Leeds United, and I have to say this: Chelsea caused their own downfall. I know there are some controversial decisions that went against Chelsea in that game. I'll still get to that in the later part of this video. But from my own point of view, I think Chelsea caused their own downfall they because they were comfortably in the driver's seat of that game. They were comfortably controlling the game before Moses Caicedo gave away a penalty, right? And after that penalty, they allowed Leeds to build confidence and they allowed them back into the game. And there was a chaotic moment where there was an initial handball towards Okafor's equalizing goal. I will still get back to that in the later part of this video as well. So from my own point of view, I think tactically Chelsea really excelled against Leeds, and that was most especially in the first half, right? Most especially in the first half, this Chelsea they were really on point. They were exceptional tactically, and the execution by the players was flawless. Flawless. They executed the manager's idea flawlessly in the first half. But come to think of it, I do not know the reason why they do not continue the way they played in the first half in the second, right? And due to some reasons, the manager opted to shake things up a little bit. And in the first half, Marco Corella and Gusto were high up the pitch. Either of them are in the attacking third, or they stretched the field. Just Chelsea can stretch Leeds, and they constantly overload the midfield, which is something great from Chelsea, and it allowed them to play with fluidity. It allowed them to play quick passes in the midfield and to open Leeds up, right? Because Leeds obviously played with back five against them, and on different occasions when they lost the possession of the ball, Chelsea retracted back into a back five where Andre Santos dropped deep into defensive role to form that back five for Chelsea, and that gave them total control of the game. They were in the front foot. When they are on the ball, they constantly overload the midfield and they outstretched Leeds. But when they lost the ball, they retracted back into five defensive man, and they just contain Leeds' strength. But from my own perspective, I think that the way they played in the first half was exceptional, and I think the manager should have replicated the same thing in the second half. But for some reason, they could not, right? They could not, and they struggled to go forward sometimes, most especially when they allowed Leeds back into that game. They just threw away the control of that game. Now, the first goal that was scored by Joao Pedro, it was due to constant overload of the midfield, which allowed them to play quick passes, and Cole Palmer located Joao Pedro's run because it was just in the blind spot of Leeds defense, right? He knew it was onside, and Cole Palmer timed his run perfectly with a brilliant pass, which put him straight on goal one-on-one with the goalkeeper, and he made no mistake to give Chelsea the opening goal. And these kind of moments occurred frequently in that game, where I know some other time Joao Pedro was caught offside because there was enormous space behind Leeds line, which I think Joao Pedro is trying to exploit, right? But he could not do that really well because sometimes he was caught offside. And if not that he was caught offside on multiple occasions, I think Chelsea could have easily scored like 3 or 4 goals in the first half. And again, Chelsea, sometimes when they are in possession of the ball, you see a box midfield. There was no, except Andre Santos, who stayed behind when they are building in case of to have that defensive solidity when they lose the possession of the ball. Moses Caicedo play high up the pitch, as well as Enzo Fernandez. He also played high up the pitch to overload the attack. And Chelsea controlled the game. They controlled the game really, really well. And I'm glad that Liam Rosinho did this in the first half. But the second half wasn't good enough from my own point of view, and that was what let Chelsea down. Now let's move to the moments of that game. As I said earlier, Joao Pedro got Chelsea the opening goal, and in the second half, Bijol fouled Joao Pedro. Sanchez located Joao Pedro's run from his own box, and that long ball was perfect. Joao Pedro got in front of the defender, and the defender was stupid to have laid his two hands on Joao Pedro because he wasn't going towards the goal. He was even going away from the goal when he pushed him from the line, and nobody will argue that that was a penalty, and it was beautifully converted by Cole Palmer. And the second goal, that was the second goal. And later on in that game, Caicedo considered a penalty. I know some Chelsea fans might be thinking that wasn't a penalty, but it was a penalty, right? It was a penalty. If he had made that kind of challenge outside the box, it is not a penalty, but it will be considered as a foul, right? But I don't know what was going through his head. The guy was in the box already, and he is in full control of the ball before he fouled him in the box. And the referee made no mistake. I don't have anything against that. What I have problem with is Okafor's goal, right? Bogle handled the ball outside the box, and this was similar to the goal that Doku scored against Manchester United. The ball touches his hand, and I could hear the commentator saying it was accidental handball. I have no belief that was accidental, right? Because the ball was bouncing around, and somehow to put the ball in his control, he touches the ball with his hand. So I think that it should have been an initial handball. I do not know the reason why referee didn't make that call. On the other hand, when the ball gets into the box, Chelsea's defenders could not clear their line, and that was their own stupidity, right? They couldn't clear their line, and if Okafor hadn't scored and they did not pick that initial handball, it could have been an easy penalty for Leeds, right? But Okafor just rolled the ball into the back of the net after a little shenanigan inside that box. I think that Chelsea played well, but my pronouncement might not reflect the result, because sometimes, right, when you see the result of a game, the stats might not reflect the results, because Chelsea outplayed Leeds, let's not lie, but miraculously Leeds get something out of the game, which I think it is brilliant for Leeds. Going forward, I think Liam Rosinho needs to examine what works for him and what doesn't work. The tactical excellence of Chelsea in the first half worked really well, and I think and I believe he should have continued with that in the second half. But for some reason, he changed the way his players operate, and that cost them dearly in the second half. So this are just my own thought and my own opinion about the game. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think about it, and I'll see you soon in another episode. And bye for now.